I'm Laurie Cardoza-Moore, and this is Focus on Israel. On today's program, we're going to visit Israel's National Emergency Medical and Blood Bank Service. So if you're a bit squeamish, you've been warned. Okay, if you're still with us, then welcome to this edition of Focus on Israel. I'm Laurie Cardoza-Moore, president and founder of Proclaiming Justice to the Nations, a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating and sharing the message of Christian biblical responsibility to the people and land of Israel against the rise of global genocidal anti-Semitism. Israel today faces threats from every corner as it is literally surrounded by enemies on all sides. The people of Israel live under a constant state of war, with rocket and terrorist attacks happening almost daily. The need for advanced and fast emergency services is greater here than any place on earth. In 1930, the Magen David Adom organization was formed as a volunteer association to provide emergency medical, disaster, ambulance, and blood bank services from a single branch in Tel Aviv. After opening branches in Jerusalem and Haifa, it was extended nationwide. MDA now provides medical support to not only Jews, but also Arabs, including Muslims, Druze, and Christians. On July 12, 1950, the Knesset passed a law making MDA's status as Israel's National Emergency Service official. The name means Red Star of David, literally the Red Shield of David. The objectives of Magen David include maintaining first aid services, maintaining a storage service of blood, plasma, and their byproducts, instruction in first aid and pre-hospital emergency medicine, operating a volunteer program in which volunteers are trained in first aid and basic and advanced life support, transportation of patients and those injured in road accidents, and transportation of doctors, nurses, and auxiliary medical forces. MDA is mainly staffed by volunteers and has over 10,000 people who serve in both operational and administrative capacities and serve over 1 million man-hours per year. The professional staff includes approximately 1,200 emergency medical technicians, paramedics, and emergency physicians. The organization operates 119 stations over the country with a fleet of over 700 ambulances nationwide. Major stations include special units for responding to mass casualty events, such as natural disasters or terrorist attacks. Since June of 2006, Magen David Adom has been officially recognized by the International Committee of the Red Cross as the National Aid Society of the State of Israel under the Geneva Conventions, and a member of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Unique among civilian emergency medical services due to its role as a national aid society per the Geneva Conventions, MDA can become an auxiliary arm of the Israel Defense Forces during times of war. Until 2006, MDA was denied membership in the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement since it refused to replace its Red Star of David emblem with a pre-approved symbol. In December of 2005, a diplomatic conference of the Geneva Conventions adopted a third additional protocol dubbed the Red Crystal. According to the rules of the third additional protocol, MDA could continue to use the Red Star of David as its sole emblem within Israel. Under these agreements, the red Magen David symbol could not be used in countries other than Israel. During our recent visit to Israel, we were given a special tour of the MDA headquarters at the Tel HaShomer complex by Jonathan Feldstein, the Israel representative for the American Friends of Magen David Adom.
It's been called the most precious liquid on earth. And even in a Middle Eastern country like Israel, it's more precious than oil or water. It's blood, the fluid that makes life possible, delivering oxygen and nutrients to the body, fighting infection, and launching the process of healing. And thanks to blood transfusions, it's now one of the biggest factors in people surviving once fatal injuries. So few things are as important to a nation's health as blood for medical emergencies, whether they're caused by everyday accidents or the acts of war and terrorism that Israelis face. Israel's blood supply is collected, safety tested, and distributed by Magen David Adom, which also serves as the country's ambulance service. Today, Magen David Adom supplies 97% of Israel's civilian blood and all the blood for the Israel Defense Forces. Magen David Adom's current blood center was built in 1987, when Israel needed to collect 175,000 units of blood to meet the needs of 4.4 million people. Just a few years later, however, the world order changed, reshaping the face of Israel. The Iron Curtain that prevented Jews from leaving the Soviet Union fell, enabling more than 1 million Russians to come to Israel, swelling the nation's population and stretching medical resources, including the blood supply. Today, Israel's population has surpassed 8.5 million people, and MDA needs to collect nearly 400,000 units of blood to meet demand, more than twice what it needed when the blood center was first built. By 2030, Israel's population is expected to reach 10 million, which will require more than 500,000 blood units. Israel needs a larger blood center and a larger facility to house Magen David Adom's growing cord blood program, where stem cells are stored for cutting-edge medical treatments around the world. But building a bigger blood center doesn't by itself address Israel's needs, and that became abundantly clear in November 2012. Israel's most belligerent enemies, Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in the Gaza Strip, previously didn't have rockets sophisticated enough to reach Magen David Adom's blood center near Tel Aviv. But the Gaza rocket crisis of 2012 and the second war with Hamas in 2014 were game changers. Now Israel's enemies, both to the north and south, can hit any part of Israel, leaving millions of Israelis and the blood supply vulnerable. That's why Magen David Adom's new Marcus Blood Center will not only have a larger processing capacity, it will be secure from attack, reinforced with its most crucial services, such as blood processing and storage, underground and out of harm's way. This will ensure that Israeli civilians and soldiers have blood when they need it most, and it will enable the blood center to continue to operate in the midst of a crisis, to meet the needs of the country and ensure the survival of Israelis. To make this new blood center a reality, it's up to us, all of us. Together, we need to make it happen, because 8.5 million Israelis are counting on us.
Of what a unit of umbilical cord blood would be. Now, what's important is that it's free and public. So we're creating really a national blood bank for stem cells, first of all, that are not coming from an aborted fetus, but are coming from what would otherwise be a medical byproduct. We're like doubling the sanctification of life by taking from a live birth something that we would potentially throw away anyway, and now being able to use that to save another life. Oh, what a miracle.
It is, absolutely.
What a miracle.
This month marks the 70th anniversary of the historic Declaration of the State of Israel. God's sovereign hand can be seen all over this land. Included in the celebrations is the opening of the American Embassy right here in Jerusalem. In honor of this celebration, PJTN is offering a special 70th anniversary package, which includes a captivating new book and an award-winning DVD. Israel Rising is a unique visual story of Israel's miraculous journey from unforgiving desert to thriving nation. Thousands of years ago, the prophet Ezekiel foretold a future time in which the arid land of Israel would come alive for its people. Now this breathtaking book documents the fulfillment of this vision, as rarely seen photographs from the 1880s to the 1940s are juxtaposed with recent photos of the same locations. This book will inspire and captivate you as it illuminates Israel's foretold awakening in a new and unforgettable way. In addition, you'll receive the award-winning documentary, Israel Indivisible: The Case for the Ancient Homeland. This inspiring film examines the many political twists and turns that make Israel the world's most controversial nation. From Abraham and the Promise to the issues facing the Jewish state today, the film examines the historical, archaeological, legal, and biblical foundations for the modern state of Israel. This is a limited time offer for these two remarkable resources for just a one-time gift of $70 today. Your generous donation will help ensure that PJTN stays on the front lines and in the headlines of all the important issues facing Israel and our Jewish brethren. So please go to pjtn.org today. From studying history, it's very clear that what starts with the Jews never ends only with the Jews. We must strongly stand against any anti-Semitic trends, for if not stopped, they'll cause harm to all of us, and we'll witness the downfall of our Judeo-Christian Western culture. Today, many people say there's no longer a need for a Jewish state, that Jews around the world no longer need a place of refuge. But anyone who has heard recent statistics about the worldwide rise in anti-Semitism would never make such a claim. The reality is that neo-Nazi groups and Nazi sympathizers are increasing around the world. Surveys show that over 1 billion people in the world harbor anti-Semitic attitudes. Close to 50% believe that Jews have too much power in the business world, and 2/3 of the world's population has never heard of the Holocaust or believe the historic accounts of it are inaccurate. Don't let yourself be manipulated by evil people with a wicked agenda. When the self-serving villains are in control, good people from all religions suffer. Muslims, Christians, and all people of conscience should stand proudly and show respect for a country that gives so much to the world in so many ways. Do your part, do your research, and do what you can to make a difference. Because what happens in Israel does affect us all. This is not just a Jewish or just an Israeli problem. This is a problem for all humanity, for each and every one of us who believe in freedom and human rights. Learn more about what you can do at pjtn.org. During our visit to MDA headquarters, we had the chance to talk with Professor Eilat Shinar, Director of the MDA Blood Services Division in Israel. After serving in the IDF, Professor Shinar acquired her MD degree at Hebrew University and Hadassah Medical Center in Jerusalem. She was nominated as a visiting associate professor in the Faculty of Medicine at Tel Aviv University in 2000 and is the author of 84 scientific papers. In the international field, she is a member of the International Activities Committee of the American Association of Blood Banks, a member of the editorial board of the American Journal of Hematology, and a member of the Health and Community Services Committee of the International Red Cross.
Magen David Adom, the Red Star of David, or the Red Shield of David, was actually founded in Israel in 1930 by volunteers, and it acted like the Red Cross of Israel. In 1950, the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, decided to make it a statutory organization, and they gave us the responsibility for the two major tasks. One is to provide all the first aid and the pre-hospital care, meaning all the ambulances, services in the country, both basic life support and advanced life support. And the other is to provide blood for the whole population, to be the national blood services of Israel. As such, we are working in Israel to collect blood from volunteers. All the blood donors in Israel are volunteers. We bring the units to the blood services laboratory, where all the units are being processed to the different blood components, tested for different diseases that we know can be transmitted by transfusion, and then distributed to all the hospitals in Israel and to the army, to the Israel Defense Forces. Because unlike America, for example, or other countries, the IDF don't have or doesn't have a blood bank of their own. So we are supposed to provide blood to the army at all times. We are trying to really give the people of Israel the level of medicine that they can get in the most advanced country and more developed country in the world. And it's very hard to do in our area because Israel is always living in what we call in medicine acute and chronic. We have a chronic state of needs for the patient and needs of the medical system. And then we have to be prepared at any moment to face emergencies. MDA is a very lean operation. In general, the organization has about 1,800 employees. We at the blood services are 250 employees, and we collect and process close to 300,000 blood units a year. What happens in Israel that first of all, the population is growing, and of course we are very happy with that. But something that is new to Israel in the last years is the population is also aging. And Israel used to be a very young country. But we are now facing an area where people are aging, they have more diseases that cannot be blood donors anymore. So we have to increase the number of units because of the growth of the population and because of the increasing medical problems. So our major goal now is to start a new facility, which is going to be bigger, which will enable us to process close to 500,000 of blood units that will be according to standards of safety and security. And this is one of the major goals that we are now trying to get some funds, more funds that are needed for such a facility. So one of the stories that I think is the most interesting that we had in the last 2 years was a story of a patient. The patient was a terrorist that was actually wounded in one of our army operations, hospitalized in an Israeli hospital, got of course all the medical treatment needed, and then this patient needed transfusion. Turned out that this patient had a very, very rare blood type, that we only had one unit compatible with what he needs. And then we wanted to look at his family to see maybe one of his relatives would have the same blood type. But they all lived in the West Bank, in the territories. They are not in Israel, they are Arabs, Palestinians. So what we did with the help of the Palestinian Red Crescent, together with Magen David Adom, which are sister organization, we went to a checkpoint where we could go from the Israeli side. We had the Arab families coming from the other side. We collected the blood, we tested it. We found one matching unit in this family for this patient. And then, of course, blood typed all this family. For me, this is a story that says that blood has no boundaries. And when we need to help somebody, we would do all the efforts needed to help people in our area as well as people out of Israel. We are registered as the National Laboratory of Rare Blood, which is part of the National Blood Services of Magen David Adom. So we are registered among all the rare blood types laboratory in the world. So if one of us need a unit of a blood type that we don't have donors and we don't have it in our inventory, we would contact the International Laboratory for Rare Blood, which is in Bristol, England, and whoever needs it would submit a request, and they would either do the contact through them or we contact between us, And then units like this will be shipped to from one country to another. This is actually almost the only blood that is shipped from country to country. Because usually each country tries to keep their own blood supply with their own donors in their own country. For Israel, it's for sure, all the blood that we collect is here, and the only units that sometimes are imported or exported are those of the rare blood type that blood banks had their connection. This is why it's important that it would not be done between government, because sometimes there are no diplomatic relations. Sometimes we are considered enemies, but through the blood donation and blood as saving life donation, we would do that. What we do is a lot of research about the reason for people to donate blood, what we can do to improve blood safety, what we can do to really improve the work we are doing. Because as I said, as blood cannot be manufactured, and we do need to get blood from each other, we really want to do it only to improve and save lives and not, God forbid, damage anybody that would get the unit. So we dedicate a lot of effort to really study what would bring people to donate blood, how can we improve the way we work, and how can we improve the safety and security of the units. I think one of the most exciting projects for us is that people who come to visit Israel, Jews and non-Jews, really feel the need to leave something behind, part of their body, part of their soul. And the easiest way to do it is to donate a blood unit, because you're really giving something of yourself, and we are really encouraging that. We think that it is very important that people would know about Magen David Adom, would know about the blood services operation, would use the fact that they can very easily help others, babies, women in childbirth, patients in operation, etc. So I think when somebody comes and wants to give us this gift, we usually get it and thank them very much for what they do. One of the units in the blood services is the public cord blood bank or umbilical blood bank. This is a unit that works with women at delivery, when we really appeal to them and ask them to please donate the unit of blood from the placenta after the baby is born, because this blood contains stem cell, and this stem cell can be used for stem cell transplantation to cure patients with malignant diseases like leukemia, or to help patients with genetic diseases such as thalassemia or sickle cell anemia, Gaucher and other diseases, or the bubble babies. This is a very good source and an existing source that can be very easily collected. It doesn't harm the women. It doesn't harm, of course, the babies, because they are safely born before. And what we have decided is to set up this cord blood bank in MDA blood services, because for us it's a donation of a unit, which fits perfectly what we do. We have our phlebotomists, women phlebotomists, located in some delivery rooms of some hospitals in Israel. They would approach the ladies that come to give birth, get their permission, of course, and consent, and after the baby is born, collect the unit. The unit will be tested. We'll see if we have enough cells to really use it for stem cell transplantation, and then we'll freeze it in special freezers at very, very low temperature and under liquid nitrogen. And these units are available for the whole world. It so happens that till now we have collected frozen close to 4,500 units, and we have already sent out 33 units around the world. 10 units were transplanted in patients in Israel, and the other 30 were stem cell transplanted all over the world, from New Zealand to Sweden to Brazil to Argentina to the States, Turkey. You mention a country, we sent a unit there. They say that he who saved one soul had saved the entire world. And if you look at the people that work here and the volunteers, you would see that they know. They get up every morning knowing that they're going to save life these days. And it's really fantastic. It's really fantastic for me also, as somebody who didn't grow in MDA. I came from Hadassah, I'm a medical doctor. I used to work with patients, and here I'm working with people who really dedicate their life to save others. And for me, it's fascinating.
That's our show for today, and I want to thank you for watching. The time to take a stand is now. One person can make a difference. Get involved and support pro-Israel organizations such as PJTN. Visit our website, sign up to receive free action alerts, and order our films to share with others. Please encourage your family and friends to tune in and watch Focus on Israel. God bless you, and thank you for all you do on behalf of our Jewish brethren and all Israel.
To support this program, send your tax-deductible gift to Proclaiming Justice to the Nations, P.O. Box 682711, Franklin, Tennessee 37068. You can also support PJTN online. Visit pjtn.org or call 1-877-873-9020.
Anti-Semitism has reached epic proportions, and Israel is now surrounded by nations who seek its destruction. For Israel to lose just one battle would mean losing everything. As Christians, it is our biblical responsibility to stand with our Jewish brethren and Israel. PJTN needs your help to reach more Christians with this urgent message. Please visit our website to become a member today and order our award-winning documentaries. You must decide that you won't be silent. Sign up now at pjtn.org. God bless you, and thank you for your support and prayers.